Okay.
Okay, you're welcome back to the final session. So this is the last session with Ameenat, who is the current PhD candidate in one of the universities in Sweden. I think that's Swedish University of Agricultural Science. So you're welcome, Ameenat. Thank you for showing up. And she'll be talking about GIS application in agriculture and forestry. Another very interesting aspect in agriculture. So let's have your presentation. Try to share. If you can't, I'll just share.
Yeah, I'm trying to share my screen now.
Okay,
I
share.
have so many pages open. So give me some moments to figure that out.
No problem.
Okay. No, not this one. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
What about now?
Okay, almost.
Right?
I think. Okay, we can see it now.
Almost. Okay,
We can see it
yeah.
now.
Okay.
But you can share as slide view so that. Okay, very good.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, audible.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Ameenat Adesina, as my host has said earlier. I am currently a PhD researcher at the Swedish University of Agricultural Science in Sweden. And thank you, CEO CIFAG, for inviting me to this platform to give my talk about GIS and remote sensing. This is a great honor for me to be here today. So today I'll be talking about GIS and remote sensing application. And I think this is not a new topic to everyone here today. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive in. So these are what I will be presenting on today. I'll talk about remote sensing, what remote sensing is all about, its applications, especially in forestry and agriculture, and then the remote sensing platforms that we have, because we have different platforms where we can get remotely sensed data. And also, I'm going to talk about sensors and resolution that we use in acquiring data, spatial data. And also, I won't just stop there. I'm going to also dive a little bit into how mapping and modeling is done, just a brief introduction, and also the emerging technologies that we are having now that is arising currently, and also because remote sensing obviously is good, but also it has a limitation. So I'm going to talk about its limitation and also future developments that is taking place currently. So let's dive in. So when we talk about remote sensing, we can't do remote sensing without having GIS. And we can do GIS without having remote sensing. Yeah. So remote sensing is like getting data from space, spatial data from maybe planets, USGS, Earth Explorer, just satellite data, either from airborne also, it's also remotely done. It's just that you don't have to be in contact with the object where you're getting your data from. So that is why we call it remote sensing. We just like get the data, the spatial data, and extract the information that you need. So when we're talking about GIS is a big platform, is a big collocation of different kind of analysis. And this is done with remotely sensed data. And also we can also use GIS to just like develop maps and all that. So that's why I said we can do GIS without remote sensing, but we can't do remote sensing without GIS. So so together, both GIS and remote sensing, they are both powerful in mapping out futures, extracting information, so that we can understand a bit more about what we can see, where we can have contact with, where we can't go there in person to see what's happening, but we can have an idea of what is happening there. So the next slide. So it's applications. I have a very short time, so I'll be a bit like faster at some point and maybe a bit slower to just give a deep understanding about some concepts. So in the application, we have several applications of remote sensing and GIS, but I'll just be talking about these two today. Remote sensing can be applied to forestry in the sense that when we are trying to get a view of change detection, like maybe you want to understand how vegetation are changing over time. So we can also use remote sensing and GIS to understand forest cover mapping and change detection. We can also use it to understand how some species, like indigenous species, are being distributed over a landscape or in an habitat, just to understand how all these conservation efforts are being managed or what are the status of this species. So we can also use remote sensing to understand all these um issues. We also have biomass and carbon stock. This is in the aspect of forest inventory to understand the amount of forest cover that we have or forest for timber production. So remote sensing is the best to use in understanding all these concepts. And however, they are backed with ground truth information for accurate analysis. And also, we can use remote sensing to detect forest health to know if a particular forest is healthy or it has been infested by diseases. And this where remote sensing comes in is to give a early detection of these diseases before it becomes widespread. So it's an very good intervention in this kind of area. And also, we also use remote sensing to understand forest structure. Because when we're talking about biodiversity, we need to understand how the structure is, how the forest is being profiled. And with remote sensing, especially using LiDAR point cloud, it gives us a good 3D image of the forest area and structure. And also in agriculture, yes, my field is not in agriculture, but yeah, we can use remote sensing also in agriculture. And this is also in identification of crop types. This is where we use hyperspectral images because hyperspectral images has a lot of bands and can distinguish between species. So we can use remote sensing to differentiate between crop types and also crop health as we can also use in forestry health and monitoring. Yeah, forest health. So also soil moisture. This is in line with hydrology. We are talking about soil moisture. We can use remote sensing to understand how drainage is being done, like how groundwater are being like are moving and how we can understand that okay, with this soil we should be expecting this amount of water content in the soil, like just to estimate that. It's not my field, so we can also use it. And also yield prediction and forecasting. Because remote sensing especially in predicting what will happen in the future, maybe 5 years time, 10 years time. And this is what we are all working towards to understand, to know what is going to happen in the next few years, and which is very, very important in conservation. So a brief about electromagnetic spectrum before we dive into sensors and all that, so that we can better understand how remote sensing works. So when we talk about electromagnetic spectrum, this is like a in physics, is like a period of light, like a range of light, a spectrum, like wavelength. So all these images, they work with wavelengths. For example, now a body that can absorb temperature is expected to release the temperature back through what? Through reflectance, right? So Talking about electromagnetic spectrum now, the visible light is what we are most concerned about because for plants, for green plants especially, for them to reflect light back, they must have absorbed some particles, some wavelengths from the sunlight. And then when they reach their saturation point, they kind of reflect some light back. So this is where remote sensing comes in. So I hope you understand this part very well. So my next slide is going to give you more detail about what I'm talking about. So now this is the leaf tissue interaction. This is how the leaf interacts with light. We have the epidermis, we have the mesophyll, and we have the epidermis, which is the lower part of the leaf. So this surface is the surface that reflects the light from the sunlight back. Some light gets absorbed into the plant leaf, but when it's a lot, it's saturated. When it's reached the saturation point, it's reflected some light back. And that light that is reflected back are in different color. For example, can you see my cursor? Hello, can someone
No, we
talk?
can't. No, we can't. Okay, I
Can you
can
Yes,
see
see
it
it
we,
now?
now.
we
Okay, I
can
can
see
see.
it.
Okay. This is the part of visible light, right? So this is where we have the blue light, the red light, the green light. This is the part that we have all those lights. So if a vegetation is very, very green, we all know that a green vegetation um photosynthesize like effectively or actively, right? So why greens are okay, let me first start from why are plants green? Can someone just give me an answer to that? Why are plants green? Why are they green
Because
in
the
color?
control and because they contain chlorophyll.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and that's not the only reason. Why plants are green is because they reflect the green light back into the atmosphere. Because they have chlorophyll, that chlorophyll that they have is green. So the red light and the green and the red light and the blue light gets absorbed by the chlorophyll. And then it reflects back the green light because it is healthy enough, so it does not need the green. So it reflects the green. That's why we are seeing the leaf as green light. So in the occasion or in a situation where the plant seems to be yellow or maybe brownish because it has colossus or like there is no more nutrients. So we expect that this area is going to be very high. This reflection light is going to be very high, and this near infrared area that is very high is going to be lower because it's not reflecting much light as it should. It's not reflecting much green light because it doesn't have the capacity to reflect any light. It doesn't have chlorophyll in it anymore. So it's not reflecting any light. So all this visible light that they are meant to be absorbed is going to be reflected back. And this one that is meant to be reflected back is going to be inside the plant tissue. So that's where remote sensing comes in. So it is this light that is being reflected. That is what we are looking into to determine if a plant is actually healthy or not. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Oh, yeah. So now we have different platforms where we can drive our satellite images, our data. We have airborne, we have optical, we have different platforms, but I'll just talk about these three because they are the most common platform where we can get data with high resolution, at least. So we have planet. This is the number one planet that has a very high resolution, like satellite image, not airborne now. This satellite image has about 3 to 5 meter resolution, meaning it has a very small pixel and gives a fine image. Like you can literally see what is happening on the ground through the satellite. So we have the daily global visits here, that is planet, and very high spatial resolution, as I have said, and it's very ideal to monitor a very short change detection, like maybe within 5 months because it has a very high revisit time, so you can easily see changes from this time to this time. And we also have Sentinel. This Sentinel is also very close to satellite to planets, and it has a very good spatial resolution of 10 to 20 meters, which is still okay. And its only visit time is 5 days. So it's more scarce than this planet. So, and it's also have easy access because now planet is now monetized. Initially, planet was free, but now we have to pay to use the data from it. As at 2023, yeah, as at 2023, it was still free, but now they commercialize it. So, but this is still free, and USDS is also still free. But USDS is not as very fine as Planet and Sentinel. USGS is the US Earth Explorer, which is Landsat, and that's been the oldest platform of satellite images. So you can get a longer duration and historical data from this satellite. It is free and open, and it is ideal for long-term monitoring. As I have said, it has been in break since 1973 or 1963, thereabouts. So now we move to the sensors and resolution. The platforms are different, and the sensors are also different. So these platforms, they are the ones that carry the sensors, depending on what you want to achieve, depending on the kind of images you want. So that is when you go for sensors. So for this optical sensor, it is what is widely used now for both forestry and agriculture. So we can use this optical sensor the platform I showed you earlier. They are the most commonly used sensors from those planets. But that does not mean all those satellites does not have this radar, and obviously it doesn't have LiDAR and thermal, but it's just the sensor that they are attached to those satellite platforms. So for this optical sensor, it is multispectral. That is, it has so many bands. It has a wide range of bands that you can select from and do several analysis that you want to do. But this radar, it is good for a cloudy area because it can penetrate through the clouds and you can get a useful information from all those satellites. But this optical, it's very bad when it have cloud cover because it does not give you good accuracies of data extraction from those clouds. So some go for radar, and this radar does not have a very high resolution. So why? But it's actually good. It is very strong for a very dense cloud, so you can see through the cloud and get your information. And LiDAR is mostly fly with drones, with airborne drones, ALS data, point cloud data, and they are also very, very good. They have very high spatial resolution, and they are also give information in 3D point cloud. Yeah, and mostly they are very good for forest structure or maybe profiling or to understand forest structure complexity. That's the main difference between LiDAR and optical. But thermal can also be used for radiation, all those environmental temperature analysis that is being done. They'll mostly use thermal sensors for them. And also we have down here, we'll talk about the resolutions of, we've already talked about the resolutions of all those platforms earlier, but we can also explain a bit more about them here. We have spatial resolution. When we talk about spatial resolution, it's talking about the size of the pixel, the size in which we can obtain information from clearly. For example, I said planet was 3 to 5 meters, which is very, very fine. It gives us very fine images. And you can also see the difference between our camera that we use these days. The camera for iPhone, maybe whatever, iPhone 15, 16 or whatever, you can't compare it with the camera of maybe Techno or all these old phones, because the cameras are being improved and they have the smaller the pixel size, the finer the images that we retrieve from them. So temporal resolution is the amount of days, revisit time, the amount of the longer duration that we can acquire data from maybe for planets now we have daily, so we have more access to much images in planet scope than we have in Landsat, which is like 7 days interval. So that's the temporal resolution. For spectra, they're all multispectral. We have hyperspectral band, which is like 100 bands, and we have multispectral bands, which can be like from 4 to 13 bands. That's just for the optical images. We also have radiometric functionals. These are the bits, like how we do the analysis, the radiometry function of all these images. So that's that. Not to spend so much of our time on that. Okay, so we need to, after getting our data, like, oh my God. After getting the data, like acquiring data and all that, we need to understand the different steps, the different processing steps for us to achieve our aim, which is to acquire information from the satellite images. We've talked about data acquisition. We can use satellite, we can use airborne LiDAR and all that. Then the second step is the radiometric processing, like atmospheric correction, georeferencing, and cloud masking. Like those are the stuff that I've explained earlier. Because when you get your data, there are some data that will be very cloudy, which will be very difficult to get information from there. So you have to correct or like mask the cloud so that you can like see through. So the next process is feature extraction, and that depends on the aim, how objective of your analysis. If your analysis is to like look for change detection in a particular area, then you know that okay, you have to do NDVI, which is normalized vegetation index. Or if you want to calculate the burn area, you use MBR, which is normalized burn ratio. Like you have several indices to do depending on what your aim is. If you are looking for hydrology now, you have a special indices that you use. You have to look for the flow line, all those parts. So this feature extraction depends on your aim of your data acquisition or for your analysis. Then classification and modeling. So this feature extraction are what you do in either with GIS or with your machine learning tools, which is maybe you can use Python, you can use R programming to do all this model classification. That's why I said remote sensing and GIS, they work hand in hand. So you do your classification or modeling, you like classify, maybe you want to classify a forest or like a cropland. You want to know maybe the crop are still healthy or not. So you have to like give them this kind of, you have to maybe supervised learning or you just do automatic. Like maybe if you have time, you can do some workshop, but I don't think I get to have much time. I just want to like give you some introduction about how it is done. So after getting your classification, you design what you want. Okay, I want area that are still forest and area that are no more forest, that are now bare lands, or area that were foresty before, but today they are no longer forest. Maybe they turn to maybe urban settlements or like different changes might have occurred. So that is when you determine what kind of classification you do on that kind of data. Then after doing your modeling, you've gotten your result, and then you can't fully trust remote sensing data because you didn't go to the field and you've never been there. You don't know what is happening on ground. So the best thing is to get another platform or maybe another ground truth where you can assess, okay, I did remote sensing spatial analysis for this area. So the data that they gave me, the ground truth data, we can't say it's true, but we can say ground reference data. You have to like validate what you've gotten from remote sensing to see if it actually correlated. So in most cases, it's always similar. Or if it's different, it's just like a small difference, maybe because of the time of data collection. That could be the possible cause. But most of the cases, they're always like similar. So, and this is where you do your visualization. This is also done in QGIS or ArcGIS. This is where the modeling occurs, where you design your final output, you create legend, you say, okay, all of what you've done, this is what you've achieved over time. Okay, you now realize that, okay, where there were maybe water before, now it is now remaining agricultural land, or maybe it's now built up. So that is where you present your results in visualization. So let's move to the next topic. So just to like give you a short introduction about how remote sensing data look like. This is the data, kind of data that you acquire from the satellites. So you can see that this is forest and they're all greens with small patches of maybe brownish color. And this area, you can see that they are less green in this area. And you can clearly see that this is a cropland, even without the labeling. You know that this is a cropland because there are some areas that have been harvested and there are some areas that are still growing. And because of the demarcation, you can see that it is like a systemized cropping system. So that's that. So now let's move on to emerging technologies. We've talked about PlanetScope, USGS, all the satellite platforms, but now we are now having drones images that are more finer than the satellite images, although we still need the satellite images to kind of corroborate, because these drone images, we go to the field actually to get the images, okay, but it's airborne, it's still like on space. So, and also have very, very good resolution, and they're good for mapping. So we also have deep learning and AI, which I've mentioned earlier. You can use your R programming or Python to predict or to model all this information that you get from the satellites, because this deep learning is not to get the data for you, it's just to model what you've gotten, the data you've gotten. And also we have cloud computing. This is where we have Google Earth Engine. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Google Earth Engine. It takes you directly to the site and then you do everything you want to do on the Earth, like just on the Earth. It's so interesting and it's so very, very nice. So we also have LiDAR and hyperspectra. These are the more leading remote sensing technologies that we are using nowadays. Everybody is now using hyperspectra images because of its high range of bands. So it can do so many things at the same time. You can compare different species of plants in the forest and even species of habitat and all that. This is used with hyperspectral images. And we also have advanced SAR, which is the satellite images. It can also measure biomass. So yeah, and there is this advanced satellite that ESA, European Space Agency, they're going to be launching very soon in September. So it's also very, very advanced because it's going to be monitoring directly how plants are carrying out their photosynthesis, and it's going to help us understand the rationale, the complexity behind photosynthesis, and how this photosynthesis can affect, can lead us to plants' health. Like when plant is not very healthy, we can see that there's a reduction in photosynthesis. But when exactly is this reduction occurring? This is where this advanced satellite comes in. It tells us, okay, at this point, this plant is already diminishing. So it's no more undergoing active photosynthesis processes. So that is very, very nice. So we also have constellation where we have high frequency monitoring, like just to see real time. When I was in FAO then, there is this real time monitoring of forest fire.
One second, Ameenat. Please check the quiz question in the chat box. So we have maybe one slide remaining, but we are running out of time. So check the quiz question and send the answer as response to the email you received earlier. So thank you so much for joining us. So Ameenat, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. So we have advanced satellite images now, or advanced tools now that can help us measure real-time events like forest fire or maybe tornado, all these like climate changes occurrence that are just happening randomly. So all these real-time platforms or technologies can help us capture all those events in real time. So we also have digital twin, which can be used in forestry and as well as agriculture So to not take much of our time, let's move to the next slide. Yeah, I think we just have one slide left. Okay, yeah, this is just the last slide that we have now. So what are the, okay, before I go to this last slide, you know what I have said now. Does anybody see maybe like any limitation to this remote sensing and GIS? Like, what do you think about it? Can someone just say something?
Yes, we have a question. How can we monitor forest stress using high-pass spectral imagery? Is that possible? We have
Yeah,
a
it's
question.
very possible to monitor forest stress. And this is where we talk about photosynthesis. Because all plants, they undergo photosynthesis. So using hyperspectral images is even more easier because it has a lot of bands. So using hyperspectral images, you just need to attach some sensors to your, like a fluorescence sensor, which is going to, the fluorescence sensor is like, during photosynthesis, at the end of photosynthesis, we have a faint glow that the plant release, which is the reflected light back into the atmosphere. That fluorescence glow is what we are going to monitor. If it's very, very low or we don't see it at all, that means there is no photosynthesis occurring. And that means the plant is under a great stress. So that's how we monitor it. And there are so many analyses that we can do also to get this kind of response. So can anyone talk about limitation? Maybe you've noticed anything that is not going fine with remote sensing, or what do you think, or any question about it before we move down to the limitations?
Yeah, good afternoon, ma.
Good afternoon.
So one of the limitations that I've seen so far is that you can't have direct access to the data except online, and you need to always validate whatever you are carrying out for optimum result.
Yeah, that's very correct. Yeah, that is very, very correct. But the fact that we can't access the data correct, we can't be in contact with the data or with the area we're getting data from. That is one of the main goal of remote sensing. We don't have to be on the field to get our data, and that is the sweetness of remote sensing. But the fact that we still have to validate what we've gotten is still a limitation because we can't fully rely on our results. So let's go to the limitations now. So now we have several limitations on remote sensing, and the number one global limitation is cloud cover. Everybody knows that once there's cloud cover, there is this misaccuracy or misanalysis that happens. It's either overfits or it's underfits what we are trying to look for. So that is the effect of cloud cover, and also spatial resolution constraint, because some images, they have their own limits. So you can't overextend them over a larger area than it can cover. So that is spatial resolution. And also temporal resolution is also a very, very good, it's very, very important limitation, because there are some historical events that you might want to like get information from, but it's not available in recent satellite platforms. You can only get it from maybe Landsat, and its resolution is not very great. So which is also a setback for that. And also we have data gaps and visit frequency, which we have talked about before, that there are some gaps in your data. Maybe you want to monitor data for like maybe 3 months, and then you can only get like 4 data in that 3 months. You can't get enough information from 4 images. So, and also cost of high resolution commercial data. Like I said, Planet has a very, very good high resolution, but now they are commercialized. So we have restricted access to this kind of data, and it is very, very good. We just have to be managing our Landsat and our Sentinel, but what can we do? So we also need the need for ground truths for validation. That is the main important limitation here, because we can't still fully rely on what we did not see. That is human instinct for you. When you do something and you realize that you've not been there, you don't really know how it is. So you can't really say, okay, this is I'm confident about this result, unless you still go to the field. But we are working towards having a standardization that if for remote sensing and ground truth they're going to be like the same. So we won't need ground truthing anymore because it's double stress. How will I be working on remote sensing and I'm still going to be trying to validate my results with ground truthing? Why didn't I just go to the field and compare my data myself? So that is how it is. So, and processing complexity for large data sets, yeah. There are some, if you want to work in a global mode now, you need a very, very high computing computer for you to work with all these kind of data sets. Yeah, and that's the limitation. But still, we move. So we have some improvement that have been going on now, which is the AI-driven automation for processing analysis. Yeah, we can use machine learning, we can use logistic regression, we can use SVM, support vector machine learning. We can use artificial neural network, which is very, very fast and it has very high computation. That is if when you have a very, very high frequency computer, high computing computer can carry out the analysis for you. And we also have better field sampling strategies and UAV-based validation, which is what LiDAR is doing now. All these campaigns that we are going to now, we are using LiDAR, drone data, ALS, like all these new technologies, which is making our remote sensing work more appreciated and giving us the results that we desire. So I think that is all for now. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ameenat, for the detailed presentation. I've learned GIS and remote sensing a lot, but every time I have opportunity to learn new things. Thank you so much. So any question from anyone? We have just 2 minutes before Zoom log us out. So if you have any question, let us know. And thank you for joining us. We've come to the end of our webinar series. Thanks to everyone who joined us. I will see you in maybe in coming years or in few months to come. Maybe we have opportunity to learn more things, and any of our audience can even, anybody attending currently can even be as a guest speaker by then. So I'll see you then, guys. Bye for now. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ameenat. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for
Bye.
listening. Thank you so much.